Mrs. James, I just have a handful of questions that I've been asked to ask you about.
Okay, thank you.
Could we turn to WITN 5426084, please? We see here a minute from Dr. Raymond to Ms. McEwen.
Yes.
Indicating in paragraph 1 that he had identified files 1 to 30.
Yes.
Were they of the GEB files?
I have no idea.
Were you aware at all of GEB files 19 to 21 at any stage?
No.
Could we turn then to WITN 5426016, please? This is a minute from Dr. Raymond to Mr. Schofield in April 1995.
Yes.
And we see in paragraph 4 that he says the paper I prepared on the 22nd of December resulted from a full day's work going through the ACVSB files.
Yes.
At this point, he doesn't mention that GEB4 had been destroyed. And Dr. Raymond didn't mention that until June 1995. Did you ask Dr. Raymond at all as to why he didn't notice that GEB4 had been destroyed in December, or why he hadn't said anything about it?
I can't remember, but I don't think so.
In your earlier evidence, you said that Dr. Raymond was not a great respecter of lawyers. That goes with the territory, I suppose. Can you help us with what you meant by that?
I don't mean he was rude or anything like that, but he had his own views about things, quite rightly, and he didn't necessarily take to what we were saying to him.
Did you have any concern that he might have had little respect for the law and the need for full
No.
disclosure?
No.
You said earlier that you'd sought, this is a little bit further on,
Right.
your conference with Justin Fenwick.
Yes.
And you said in relation to that you knew the department was in difficulties and
Yes.
what had happened was embarrassing and would attract adverse publicity
Yes.
and had the potential for compromising litigation, and that none of that could be hidden. Had you felt that these issues would not come to light during the litigation, would you still have sought external advice in relation to the missing documents?
Yes.
Can you explain why that was?
Well, because I needed to know what should be done, and I had no ideas about it.
And then could we turn to WITN 5426332? This is an email that you sent to Ms. Sedat
Yes.
in February 2005, commenting on a draft response to a Freedom of Information request.
Yes.
And you speak about the issues of records being destroyed. And at the very end of this email you say, secondly, in the letter, I don't think you can say has been destroyed in accordance with best records management, when the documents were destroyed in the worst records management. I would just say has been destroyed.
Yes.
Can you explain for us why that was your assessment, why you considered it had been the worst records management?
Well, because things had either been deliberately destroyed, as I believed in the case of Dr. Mehta's records, or, as I believed in relation to the registered files, it had been done carelessly at least. In
relation to the efforts that flowed in trying to locate missing records.
Yes.
Do you consider or accept that the records, the documents we've looked at, might demonstrate that there was no sense of importance or urgency in the efforts to try and locate records?
I might agree with you in relation to the first period, but not in relation to the second. But when I say the second, I mean my time from 1999 onwards.
So you'd accept that point that I'm asked to put to you in relation to your first period in the DHSS,
Yes.
but not from 1999
No.
once you returned? It's a very similar question, but with a slightly different emphasis.
Okay.
Do you consider that there were missed opportunities to conduct a comprehensive forensic review of documents at a much earlier stage?
No, I don't think so. I think just pressure of work and the way business was done meant that that's what we didn't do. So I wouldn't say that opportunities were missed, because I don't think we saw there were opportunities.
I'm also asked in relation to potential Scottish litigation.
Yes.
To what extent did you liaise with colleagues in Scotland
Pardon?
in respect of
Sorry.
potential Scottish litigation?
I do beg your pardon. I keep
No, please don't worry.
cutting across you. Not at all, because there's separate jurisdiction, and frankly, I always found it quite difficult to understand their system, because we had to deal with it on the social security side, because that was a universal benefit that covered the whole of the UK, and we had to use Scottish lawyers. There was just no cross-fertilisation between us.
And finally, just before the morning break, I asked you that whether, with the benefit of hindsight, you thought that there were aspects of the disclosure process during your first period of time
Yes.
should have been handled better, and you said yes. And I asked if you wanted to elaborate at all on that, and you declined. Could you explain the reason for your reluctance to elaborate?
It's no deliberate covering up on my part. I just can't remember very much about that period at all. It's all a bit of a blur. And so it would be no use in me speculating about what happened then, because it's almost gone from my memory.
Sorry, sir. So it's more a clarification than a question I need to particularly put to Mrs. James. I took her to the first document in relation to some files 1 to 30, just to flag that files 1 to 30 that are referred to in that document, the Dr. Raymond to Ms. McEwen minute, were actually HIV litigation documents rather than GEB documents. Yes. But I think you answered that you weren't, you can't remember, or you weren't aware of the GEB 19 to 21 files.
That's correct.
So those are the questions I have, and Mr. Moss has nothing further. Sir, do you have matters you'd like to raise?
Just a couple. You said this morning towards the end
Yes.
that in relation to the developing problems that there were with incomplete disclosure,
Yes.
that you weren't sure what to do. The department was in difficulties. It was embarrassing. It could compromise the litigation, but it couldn't be hidden.
Yes.
And it was, I think, that was very much the background, was it, to your meeting with others, with Justin Fenwick.
Yes.
And that meeting has remained in your memory. You remember where you were sitting.
Yes.
And no doubt partly because of the seriousness of the position.
Yes.
Was there any other case in which you were involved in your time in the department service one department or the other, when you'd had anything similar happen?
No, no, sir.
So this was really quite remarkable.
Yes.
Could we have a look, please, at WITN 5426332? And that wasn't what I was looking for. It was... yes, it is. No, it's the top one. The email, the top of that, thank you. This is an email from you to Zubaida Sidat.
Yes.
And if you look down to about 5 lines up, 6 lines up from the bottom, it begins in paragraph 7. You should refer to the discovery process and the hepatitis C litigation rather than HIV litigation.
Yes.
Also, I would say, quote, by a junior official at the Department of Health who no longer works there. And then in brackets this. He took early retirement to look after his small holding. Now, can you help from your memory of what was this remarkable occasion?
Yes.
Where that comes from, that bit in brackets?
That's me, obviously, speaking in the email, and I'm referring to David Burridge.
So this is David Burridge who took early retirement to look after his small holding?
Yes.
I see.
But I was under the mistaken belief
That it was him?
that it was him, yes.
Yes, I see. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. James, is there anything else you would like to add at this point?
No, thank you very much.
Well, can I thank you? We've challenged, I think, your memory, and what you've said is a
Certainly
blur.
did. Yes.
And you made that very clear in your witness statement at the start. It's a great pity for us that it hasn't been able to be any clearer, but there it is.
I'm very sorry that that's the case, but just the passage of time and events that have happened in between have obliterated quite a lot.
No, I understand, and thank you very much for being here and telling us what you can.
Thank you.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, sir, we will hear from Ms. Sidat in the morning and Professor David Armstrong in the afternoon.
So, 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, Zubaida Sidat. Thank you very much.